But you know who else had a very big part to play in Nanook's history and ascension? Rupert I, the Emperor of the Mechanical Wars. And you mean to tell me that Erudition and the Destruction are here? So I had an epiphany last night, and I'm gonna share it with all you. But be warned, I'm gonna spoil Amphoreus for you like I did Penacony, alright? You've been warned. Now, I want to talk about the Destruction, Phainon, Nanuk, the Lord Ravager, all of that, unravel it, freaking crack the code. But before we can do that, we gotta talk about this guy. Because I can't stop thinking about this guy. Herta compares him to Skrullum, and he just happens to be on Amphoreus, one of the most mysterious unknown places in Honkai's Star Rail, and we don't even know if Amphoreus is a real physical place yet or not, since it could very well be a past memory we're living through or something to that effect. Amphoreus is obviously very unique and different to anywhere else we've been. I mean, for God's sakes, the Trailblazer had died already and we didn't even know it. In our current timeline, certain things have already happened throughout history, but Amphoreus itself, whenever that memory was preserved, if you are in Amphoreus, you are taking place in the timeline of which the memory was captured. This infinite cycle memory that we're living through, potentially. And if this is the ascension of Nanuk, then the Emperor of the Mechanical Wars would also still be around. First things first I want to say though, I do not actually think that the Black Tide itself is caused by one of these 3 eons, especially the Destruction. I do in fact believe that the Black Tide itself comes from a Stellaron. Maybe one of these eons is manipulating it, so indirectly causing the Black Tide and Amphoreus' demise, but I don't think it actually physically stems from one of those paths. I think a Stellaron is ultimately at play here. But there's a very interesting relationship here because you have the Remembrance and then the Destruction. Nanook of Destruction values all aspects of destruction. You have your typical blowing planets up kind of destruction, like Phantilia, destroying somebody from within. A very common theme among the Destruction and the Lord Ravagers, the Emanators of Destruction specifically, is they all harness a unique aspect of destruction. So I think this whole chapter of the destruction of memories, what Fully of Remembrance stands for, preserving all memories of the current universe in case the inevitable demise. The Destruction perhaps looks to undo what Fully is trying to preserve with Amphoreus. Why there's 3 eons here, and Lygas being in Amphoreus under the banner of Erudition obviously looks to mediate and investigate what's going on, with his very interesting conversation with Herta. And clearly Erudition wants to learn what is happening here in this very unique world. We are obviously still not 100% sure how Amphoreus functions, but being that it's such an isolated place in the shape of a giant infinity sign, there is obviously a great significance to draw 3 different eons here. But then he says you will break the shackles of a Lord Ravager, and when that happens, they will engulf the cosmos. Now yes, the Emanators of Destruction are powerful enough to warrant that kind of response, but it also seems a little overkill for me. Can this all really just be about an Emanator of Destruction at the end of the day? Because all of you already know my stance on the Flame Reaver. This mysterious swordsman very clearly knows the inner workings of Amphoreus, the demigods, and knows exactly how Amphoreus functions. Now I've already covered this in a video, but I'll recap it very briefly. There are obvious signs that Phainon himself is the Flame Reaver, maybe even his future self from Era Nova. Once the Flame Chasers actually reach the new era, maybe things don't pan out the way they're supposed to, and he's found a way to break outside the cycle, and is now trying to prevent the Chrysos heirs from completing it again. Now that we know with Castris and her sister that Amphoreus has this cycle of inheriting a core flame. Humans become Titans, Titans then uphold the laws of which each Titan represents, and then eventually a new Flame Chaser will take their core flame and become the new Titans. Man, Amphoreus sounds a lot like Xenoblade 2, the more I think about it, to be honest. But what's more interesting is how the Flame Reaver went about trying to stop this. As already mentioned, Mightyos and Phainon are very good pals and have a ton of respect for each other. Mightyos actually shares how to defeat him with Phainon, and the Flame Reaver uses this same tactic, going for the back. It also shows the Flame Reaver and Phainon both using their left hand. Just through their design alone and how they fight, The parallels seem kind of obvious, really, so I'm fairly confident that Lygus is talking about the Flame Reaver as this Lord Ravager with the shackles. Another key piece of evidence that's actually huge is Phainon in his past. His childhood friend Cyrene, which we get a little bit of a flashback with her talking with a young Phainon before their hometown was eradicated. Phainon has a very tragic past. He has a lot to fight for, but it shows that she later got slashed. And then in 3.1, when Mem was trying to look into the memories of the Flame Reaver, it again showed Cyrene. So how is it that Phainon and the Flame Reaver have the same tragic memory of the same person? I mean, come on. The Flame Reaver was about to kill Mightyos with the exact tactic that Mightyos himself taught Phainon to use. And it's Phainon himself that counters the Flame Reaver. I mean, it all just fits perfectly, but actually it can go much deeper than that. Because yes, this could very well just be a chapter of keeping a Lord Ravager shackled, which we obviously know that's not going to last. But what if Amphoreus is something bigger? Because there are other Lord Ravagers that have been hinted at. Maybe it's not the Flame Reaver. This very mysterious Lord Ravager that's like a chess player. That has been teased already within Amphoreus. Now I'm going to propose my thoughts here on a possibility. What if the significance of Amphoreus is the birthplace of Nanuk, the main antagonistic Eon in Honkai Star Rail? This is the birth of Nanuk, and then, in turn, the Antimatter Legion with all of his Lord Ravagers, his great lieutenants of his big army. And what we're ultimately witnessing here is some time memory shenanigans, kind of like Penacony, but much, much bigger, with 3 different Eons involved. That would certainly warrant the significance of Amphoreus. And what I actually think could be a big possibility is the Flame Reaver, aka Phainon, is who ascends into Eonhood to be Nanuk of Destruction. Everything coming full circle, but you might be saying to yourself, how is that possible? If Nanuk is already present here, how can he be being born here? That doesn't make any sense. And we already know what planet Nanuk was born on. We know of his origins towards the end of the Swarm disaster. Like, this is debunked 10 times over, right? Yeah, I can see why you might think that, but no. It actually makes more and more sense the more you think about it. Something else we learned about Nanuk is that his homeworld was destroyed. And Amphoreus is not a typical planet we go to. It's a giant infinity loop, with nobody knowing about the outside world. You know, sort of like the Elysian realm that all of this is based on. Now, according to the IPC, the most reliable people in the galaxy, so anything they tell you information-wise on history events, even though they monopolize history after the Swarm disaster, I mean, come on, they're trustworthy, okay? And the Enigmata, they would never, ever do what they say they're gonna do. I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do. But essentially, Nanuk in his homeworld, Adelvon, was destroyed by him. When he ascended, he destroyed his own homeworld. Around the end of the Swarm disaster, somewhere around that time, it's very vague. But apparently his homeworld was ravaged by the Emperor's War, the Mechanical War. But get this, Akavili the Trailblaze Eon visited Nanuk's homeworld while it was still fighting a war. And then in turn, when Nanuk ascended, it destroyed its home world. Now, if you replace Nanuk's homeworld with Amphoreus, and replace Akavili with us, the Trailblazers, coming, it's almost an exact replica of what actually happened. What if the true history of Nanuk's ascension had been lost? Which is why nobody knows about Amphoreus, and why Foley's trying to preserve it. Why Herta, who creates simulated versions of the Eons to learn these secrets, is here. Why Erudition is here. Maybe this very ominous, mysterious, inorganic being that's a lot like Skrullum, recognized by Erudition, is part of Rupert's empire. Maybe this is Rupert. We have no idea the can of worms that Amphoreus could really be. Now, even if you did not play Honkai Impact 3rd, the parallels between these two games and characters is obviously uncanny, since these Flame Chasers are based off those Flame Chasers. The Elysian Realm in Honkai Impact 3rd is a simulated world that you can experience the story and memories of the previous era over 10,000 years ago. And you can meet simulated versions of the 13 Flame Chasers that existed long ago. Great heroes that died fighting the Honkai. And among them, the most exceptional, Kevin Kazlana, who Phainon is a variant version of. Long story short, Kevin was the most exceptional hero who wanted to save humanity from the Honkai. He ended up surviving to the current era, one of the few flame chasers to do this. He would ultimately become the Herrscher of Finality. What did Welt tell us again when talking to Akron and Penacony? Somebody that got too close to the sun, achieved great things, but at the end of the day, he was the unsung hero that fell from grace, becoming one of the most feared individuals in all of Honkai Impact. Phainon shares the exact same characteristics. He's talked up big by a Nexa, a Galaya, and anyone with ears willing to listen. He's a very imperfect and down-to-earth guy, somebody that people can turn to and trust. He's a very gifted fighter with an extremely tragic past. He has a lot of incentive and reasons to keep fighting the good fight. Fight for his dead family, the survival of Amphoreus. It's going to be that much more devastating when we learn the truth of what he becomes. But even look at Phainon and then look at Nanuk. Amphoreus is the land where the Chrysos heirs run with golden blood. Nanuk literally looks like Phainon once he ascends into Eonhood, with lacerations spilling his golden blood. And there's so many hints and teasers that actually point towards this. In a lot of ways, Kevin Caslana is like Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, and this sort of fits Amphoreus too. Eren Yeager was the main protagonist, wanting to save humans from the Titans, and over the years and hardships, he learned that humanity was actually the enemy all along. So he aims to eradicate 99.9% of life on Earth, becoming the main antagonist, using time-traveling shenanigans to make this happen. He fashioned his own destiny, and from the future, cultivated his past self as the hero to become the ultimate villain to eradicate humanity, and must be stopped. It's kind of like the same thing here in Amphoreus. Phainon right now as we know him, whether we're witnessing this through a memory, if it's happening in real time, a little bit of both. Again, we're not sure exactly how Amphoreus works 100%, but clearly it does not function like everywhere else. It is a very plausible theory that Nanuk in one of his Lord Ravagers has to assist with its own Eon's ascension. Actually, it makes for a great plot twist and story, and is perfectly on track for Phainon and everything we know about him. And the fact that Amphoreus is not even known by the Trailblaze Eon or pretty well nobody in the cosmos, this would be a great reason why. It is enough significance to warrant what Lygus says at the end. If you lift the restraints on this Lord Ravager, then it will engulf the cosmos. I think the Lord Ravager is the catalyst for Nanuk's ascension. Plus, I mean, come on. The design choices alone are insane. Phainon has the sun motif, the Flame Reaver has the moon. Even in Nanuk's splash art and trailer, you see the darkened sun in the background up top. We also get this similar scene in the Amphoreus trailer. And Welt, referring to Kevin in this game, refers to him as a sun chaser. Like, come on, who are we kidding here? It was the same thing in Penacony with Sunday. The guy is a freaking control freak, and he had a bunch of eyes all over his design and weird design choices. Penacony's world map was in the shape of a giant eye, and people still tried to tell me that Enna of Order wasn't involved, that Eon's dead. It can't be possible. There's no way that Eon was absorbed by Harmony. Can't be done. And then boom, look what happened. I understand that there are reasons to justify this not being the case, this theory being wacko, but not really. There are Easter eggs everywhere. If Hoyoverse wasn't trying to hint towards this, then man, they are misleading us. Even that whole scene in 3.1 where Phainon, the heroic, awesome stand-up guy that he is, was asking Anexa about this very powerful Mysterio cloaked individual. Like, bruh. Really? Now, I used Eren Yeager and Kevin Caslana as examples of heroes that want to save humanity but ultimately view humanity as the problem by the end of their villain arc. But Phainon wouldn't do that. He's just such a stand-up guy. And there's nothing in Amphoreus that warrants this type of behavior. Actually, there's nothing but. Look at how humans behave in Amphoreus. Something we learned with the very first trailer we got and with the Council. Humans turn on each other. They wanted to murder the first Chrysos heirs before she became the demigod of passage. We learned that in 3.1. Humans are ambitious and evil as they've always been. Mightyos' father was responsible for help turning their own titan mad, which caused the death of many. And the Black Tide functions the exact same in both Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. It takes humans, gods, and living beings and corrupts them and brings the worst out in them. No different than a zombie apocalypse. Once you're bitten, man, that's it. You're gonna be trying to eat everyone you love. So for Phainon, living in a world like this, where humans have always done human things, there would be a lot of incentive for him to eventually snap, reach Era Nova, and nothing goes according to plan. Everything's a waste. His friends and family in his hometown slaughtered. His colleagues, later demigods, all slaughtered. He fails humanity, and then ultimately realizes the only true way forward is the destruction, the inevitable demise of everything. And this secret Lord Ravager assisting its own Eon's ascension, or just try to stop the remembrance, erudition, or whoever could try to be preventing it. I've laid out the meat and potatoes, the bacon and eggs of what I think is going on here. The only thing I can't exactly pinpoint are the little details, the specifics.
So let's rhyme off a bunch of possibilities. Like I already talked about, Phainon is the Flame Reaver then ascends to Nanook of Destruction. Or Phainon isn't the Flame Reaver but still ascends to Nanook of Destruction. The Flame Reaver being the Lord Ravager. Phainon still being the Flame Reaver but isn't a Lord Ravager. A different Lord Ravager is also trying to see that Phainon ascends to be the Eon of Destruction. That mysterious Lord Ravager that's said to be a chess player, perhaps. Phainon is the Flame Reaver, trying to prevent the Chrysos heirs from collecting the core flames and entering Era Nova. Trying to prevent his own ascension into Eonhood and his own demise. Or Phainon is the Flame Reaver but does not ascend to be Nanook of Destruction. Nanook is its own entity of destruction and Phainon is a Lord Ravager. This is the story of how he becomes a Lord Ravager through the fabrics of time, space, and memory. There is a Lord Ravager known as Sun Devourer. And like we already talked about in the video, there's a lot of sun motif references and then moon eclipse references. Sun Devourer blocking out the sun, Nanook, Phainon, you get the point. And we know for a fact that Rupert I, or the Mechanical Wars, played a huge part in Nanook's ascension. What if the Black Tide is actually the anti-organic equation? Woo! Explaining Erudition's involvement here, and ultimately, Phainon becomes the Eon of Finality. There, I found an excuse just to add that in the video. But it's never off the table. Regardless of how this plays out, it matters not, because at the end of the day, Aglaia is still hot.
To me, at least, it seems like this would warrant the investigation of the Genius Society and Erudition, why Fully's here trying to preserve this memory, why nobody knows about it. Amphoreus is one of the most secretive places in all of Honkai Star Rail. There's a lot of motive for all of this. It's really no different than Penacony. A lot of people told me that it was crazy that Enna of Order could be involved where the Harmony is since Enna of Order is dead, quote unquote. But no, as I said many times, Enna of Order was assimilated or absorbed by Harmony. And lo and behold, it was ultimately revealed that the Order had hijacked and taken over Penacony from within. When it comes to Eons and their paths, it is very interesting because their concepts and metaphysical ideals embodied into an entity, so the rules with them isn't so cut and dry. And because Amphoreus is so unique compared to anywhere else we've been, how they go about telling this story can be very interesting. Like maybe the Flame Chasers are hastening the ascension of Nanuk without even knowing it. Maybe the Flame Reaver, aka Phainon, is trying to stop his own ascension. There's a crazy amount of ways they can tell this story and wrap it all up together. But at the end of the day, that is just a theory of mine. It could very well be that what we're witnessing is simply just a Lord Ravager being shackled into Amphoreus from unleashing something bigger, tampering with the Stellaron and maybe just completely destroy Amphoreus. Now Fully is intervened and now Erudition as well. It's also been leaked and heavily speculated that the Constance of Dalia from the Annihilation Gang, another branch of destruction, and the Constance I speculate to be a cremator. Not only is it cool that we might get to see this character, but she actually fits perfect for Amphoreus in this whole chapter, dealing with the remembrance. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now that we know it's the destruction, how do you see Amphoreus playing out in the big picture? Do you agree with me? Do you have your own ideas on what you think Amphoreus is? If it's taking place in the present or not? I'm curious to read your thoughts in the comments, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.